Okay, so we're here at High Voltage Guitars today. Zach.
Hello.
Nashville, Tennessee. And we brought my Les Paul up because you want to sort of spruce it up a little bit.
Yeah, so it is kind of like a time capsule of reissues. I kind of wanted to talk to you about vintageifying it or something, a little bit more, like taking it further, because it's already aged, and it's well loved, but I thought we could maybe put some more accurate parts and then ultimately kind of mess with the electronics.
We've got some parts over here. Some of them are aesthetic, right? Like vintage correct tail pieces and plastics and stuff. We're probably gonna change the pickups today. I'm gonna buy a set from Zach here and swap them out, because as I've had this guitar for about 2 years now, the one thing about it that I don't really love is the fact these pickups are potted. When we were comparing them to your Les Pauls with non-potted pickups, these pickups feel a little bit compressed. So I want to try a different set of pickups in this guitar. Let's get a benchmark. So we're going to set up through the 2-Rock Vintage Deluxe here and just plug straight into the front of it. And we'll play this one so we can get kind of a before and after. This is not going to be a scientific comparison by any stretch of the imagination, but you should get a decent idea of like a before and after. And then we've even got some of these other R9s here to compare it against and see what our options are. So.
Sure, let's do it.
I love the way this guitar sounds, but
Sure.
It's like there's a compressor on. It feels like there's an 1176 on the guitar where even though I was playing super hard just then, if you lighten up, the output doesn't really change that much.
Yeah, it feels like, I think a lot of that is potting. I feel like on pickups that aren't potted, the lighter you touch, you can just take it down to nothing.
We should explain what potting is, because there's somebody watching this that doesn't know what we mean by that.
So potting is a way of sealing a coil so that you are dampening any outside vibrations to reduce feedback and any squealing or anything that might happen from a very loud volume, a lot of gain, or outside influence. Basically, on humbuckers, typically it's some sort of wax that you dip it in and it seals the coils.
The little vibrations coming from the pickup covers or from the body of the guitar essentially make the pickup work like a microphone.
Which is a point of contention with a lot of people. They don't want to admit that it is, like, microphonic also means that it works like a microphone, but it does.
Yeah, I've had unpotted PAFs before, and I tend to prefer them because you get a little more dynamics out of them, a little more articulation, a little more headroom.
Yes.
The trade-off is on a loud stage or in front of a loud amp, they can start to squeal and feedback and all that.
I do think it changes the sound as well. I think there is some sort of clarity thing that goes away with potting, but not all potting is created equal. But I think for what you're going for, and now that you've kind of got to terms with like what this guitar can do, it'll kind of open up what it's capable of if you put in unpotted pickups.
You'll play it?
Sure.
So play something on this, and then we'll grab your Brazilian and compare it. They're both Les Pauls.
Yes.
They both sound like Les Pauls. They both sound like PAFs. The difference sitting in front of the amp is that has more like the transient response, like the pick coming off the string is sharper.
Yes.
It's more present. And the note seems to decay a little faster, and you've got much more dynamic range there.
Mm-hmm.
Like the differences in your picking strength are much more apparent coming out of that guitar than this guitar.
Yeah, and it's subtle, but you start to connect with it more when you have that sort of amount of control.
We are well in the category of this is for the player, not the listener.
Yes.
Because these two guitars feel different to play because of the electronics, because of the pickups and the pots. And even though you played the same sort of idea and like you played it way differently on that than you did on this.
Yeah, I think like that's a big part of it, and so is this.
Yeah.
Because we haven't even talked about what's going on in that control cavity.
Yeah.
Which on that guitar, it probably has, we'll have to take it out and measure them. They might not even be 500K pots. That really limits how much high-end information can even come out of the instrument.
Yeah, right.
From a electronic standpoint.
You might not need new pickups. You might just see what value the potentiometers are, your volume and your tone pots, and going to a higher value, so from like a 300K to a 500K, for example, on a humbucker like this will let more clarity through.
Think of it like a water pipe. The bigger the pipe, the bigger the resistance value, the more water can get through, and that's your high end.
Yeah.
So when you choke it down, it's just, you know, lowering that amount of information that gets through. So I am a nut, of course, and I'll measure each volume pot position so that I put a slightly higher value in the neck and slightly lower, but still in the right range in the bridge, so the bridge is not overtly bright.
Right.
And this is real heady, dorky stuff that ultimately doesn't matter. But, you know, we invest a lot of money, any amount of money in these instruments, and you should make them be the way you want them.
Yeah. So
that's right.
You want to break this thing open and see what's in it? All right, so let's start with measuring the pickups, and then we'll measure the pots. So how does someone measure pickups at home without pulling them out of the guitar?
So the easiest thing to do is take a patch cable off your pedal board, and then you need a multimeter of some form or fashion. I think this is a must-have for everybody. And then put it to ohms. It's the one that looks like the God of War symbol. Make sure your knobs are on 10, and then put the positive or the red, the hot, on the tip of the cable, and then the ground on the sleeve, and you will see the resistance. So the bridge on this one is only 7.81K, and then the neck is 8.06.
Wow.
So I should say, the true measure of a pickup, you have to desolder it because the resistance of the pot itself will affect the reading.
Okay.
But this is a safe way to do it. So let's take the back off.
Okay.
And then we can check out these pots. Okay.
Wow.
So, all original wiring. You can see that it is indeed an R9. The reissue instruments typically are stamped R for reissue, 9 for 59. We've got some little teeny ceramic caps, and this is wired the modern way. There are two common ways of wiring Gibson style guitars, and I've seen both on vintage instruments. I've opened up 50s Les Pauls, Les Paul Customs, and they're wired the modern way. In this configuration, you're getting a little bit of capacitance sucking off the high end of your pickup because it's routed to it. Even when this is all the way up and the ground's effectively disconnected,
Right.
it's still gonna have some influence.
Got it.
But when you do it the other way, you're only really seeing it on the switch.
Got it.
So a little more clarity just in that simple wiring. That's some nerdy ass shit. I'm just going to lift out the pickup lead off the lug itself. We will heat this up. 479, okay.
Yeah.
So we can go one of two ways. We can pull all this out and upgrade it with all new stuff, which I think the volume pots that I recommend have a different taper. Like, we're really getting into the weeds here. But it does affect where the jump is. When you're playing it, is there a noticeable jump from like 8 to 10?
Yeah, it's right around there, where it's like not a whole lot, not a whole lot, not a whole lot. Then when I hit 7, it goes way up.
Yeah. Do you like that?
I'd like a little more
even
granularity, if you want to put it that way.
Right.
Or even spread.
So, have you ever talked about on your channel linear or logarithmic potentiometers?
I haven't. This is a perfect opportunity to do so, Zach.
Okay. So, normally in guitars, there are two different types of tapers. There's linear,
Right.
Which, if you're on a chart, it's pretty much just a straight line. It's a 45-degree line. And then logarithmic, which is how we perceive sound, which curves upward. It curves like this, so it does that. But in guitar potentiometers, there are different percentages of that taper. The ones that I like, these pots that I get from RS Guitar Works, we might actually carry them here, which would be really cool. They have a 30% audio taper, which to me is the most even range under your hand.
Right.
That's all we really need to know for this.
Okay. Yeah, then let's swap them out.
Okay. I like to lift out the pickup leads. And then the tricky thing is this ground wire. So one thing I always recommend, use a chisel tip on your iron, which is basically like a big flathead screwdriver.
Yeah.
That's going to transfer heat more quickly onto what you're trying to solder.
And the way I learned with soldering pots is you want to use as little heat as necessary and get on and off as quick as possible, because you can actually sort of ruin the pot.
You can burn them up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get underneath it. There we go. Oof. Should lift right off. There we go. That's it. So we can flip it over, pull the knobs, and get these things out of there. This is my favorite trick. I use either a rag or just a plastic bag.
Yep.
Works really well. And so,
well, we should say, if you're new at this, what you don't want to do is just get under there and like pull it off, because you want to lift that off as straight as possible. Otherwise, you can bend the shaft, you can break the knob, you can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the worst thing in the world is if you have a split shaft pot and you break off one of those, because then you're screwed. You have to get another pot. So this is pretty easy. Slide it under the pot, wrap it around all the way tight, pull it, and then pull straight up, and it'll come off, just like that.
Ugh. Ew.
What is that?
Dude,
Brett?
that's vintage. That's from no, man, that's from the 90s, dude. That's, save that. We're gonna put that on the new pod.
What?
Ew, dude.
I bet someone put some adhesive, because these knobs probably kept
Or they just never washed their hands.
That is
Disgusting.
old electrical tape.
One of the other things we're doing today is upgrading the plastics and the knobs. It's one of the things they're doing here at High Voltage Guitars, is selling like vintage correct plastics and knobs. So if you are a complete nerd like Zach and I are for this stuff, you can replace a lot of these plastics because there are subtle differences between the reissue stuff and how things were in the late 50s. So this is much closer to what you would have gotten on a real burst.
Yeah, same
versus the
material
reissue.
too.
Yeah, and then pickup rings.
And then we have a poker chip with the right font, and I age these to kind of match the vibe of this guitar.
So if you want to make your Les Paul a little bit more vintage correct, like late 50s, early 60s spec, we'll have some links down below.
All right, let's get these pots off.
So on the measurement, so these are all 500K pots, but because of manufacturing tolerances, some of them are a little north of 500, some of them are a little under 500. If it's under 500, you're saying use that as a tone pot.
Yeah, if you only have so many at your disposal, the lower value ones, put them in the tone position. It matters, but it matters less so.
Right, okay.
So yeah, so we have a couple options here. So 559, 555, 557, 556, 555. So if it were me, I would probably put one of the 555s in your bridge, and then the 7 or the 9 in the neck to get the most clarity. Cool. But I mean, this is like, you're splitting such fine hairs. Rewiring a guitar, you can do it one of two ways. I, more often than not, will make a template out of cardboard. So I'm not doing work in the guitar, so I don't burn the finish or the wood on the guitar. So what I usually do, will grab a piece of cardboard. Have you seen me do this?
No.
Take this and just lay it on there. Take a Sharpie, mark.
This is making me feel so dumb.
Why?
You know how many times I've swapped pickups on guitars and just done all the stuff in the cavity, and I've burned the side of the cavity with my soldering iron and stuff.
Cardboard drills really easily. Doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be close enough. And we have a template. Okay, so This is neck, so 5/9. I have my bus wire, which this is what you use for grounding all the pots together. One thing I like to do beforehand is I will take all of the little bits that need to be touching the pot or out of the way and go ahead and move them. So we'll go ahead and get the grounds connected. So the easiest way to do that is tin your iron, fill up all this, and then just kind of let it flow on, and you'll have a little tiny.
You don't need that much.
You don't need much at all. And I will say, if you have trouble with your guitars after you do work on them, always check your grounds first, because typically that is going to be your first point of failure.
Right.
A little bit of solder to create a spot to tin, and then flow that on just real quickly like that. And now I'm going to kind of give a little extra here. It's not going to be super pretty, just has to work. The only other things we have to do is put in the tone caps and then do the rest of the tinning. So I'll go ahead and tin where the selector switch and the pickup lead will go. Okay. So just do a little bit here and here. This one will have a similar spot here and here. You'll have a spot for your ground.
So what are we working with here?
So these are vintage caps. I'm actually not sure what they're made of. They might be paper and oil. They are Russian caps. These are replicas of vintage caps made by Lux. Now Lux does all the new caps for Gibson, the Black Beauties and all this stuff. But these Sprague caps would have been in like a Les Paul Custom. These are Gray Tigers, which are made by Lux as well. And these are what would have been in a guitar from 52 till about 57, 56. The type of capacitor matters a little bit when you're using your tone knob. Has no influence on the sound really if your tone knob is always on 10.
Right.
So if you don't ever use your tone knob, don't bother with changing capacitors. But basically how a capacitor like this is made is it's thin sheets of foil rolled on top of itself and filled with some sort of oil, and then it's sealed.
What would you go with?
I would go with these. That would have been more likely something that you would have found in 59, probably. One thing I like to do, since these have this little bit of tubing on them, I'll put those on there, and then you can kind of see how much room you got, like this and like that. And then you bend it outward, and then you can fish it in here. Kind of give this a bit of a J and tack that down on the tone pot, and we can just barely tack this on like that. That's what I was trying to do. So they're in there. So now we just need to put the nuts and the new thumb cutters on there. I want this to look as proper as possible.
Right.
I wanted to do it in the guitar. I'm gonna connect the grounds for all this bus wire. My favorite tool, chopstick. Everybody, save chopsticks. And we'll tin all these and then get the grounds connected. And have another person to help you.
Nice.
It's very nice. There you go. And then we'll get this last one down. So all the ground is connected. We'll double check. This is not so bad, but if you're doing it in any other guitar where it's more of a pain, you always want to make sure that your grounds have continuity.
Brighter.
Seems brighter.
Yeah, definitely brighter. Still has the compressed nature.
Yeah.
Like that hasn't gone away.
You see how the taper on the volume pot is?
Yeah, that's way nicer. I have more, there's like more fidelity, there's more options.
Yeah,
now.
and I feel like in this wiring, you don't need treble bleeds as much.
Yeah.
It's still, if you want more treble, you could do it. But I don't think it's as necessary on this style of guitar if you wire it that way.
Yeah, so. Yeah. So when we're rolling the tone off, now we're starting to hear that cap, right? Dude, that's awesome.
It's interesting because you're probably one of the first people that I've like rewired the guitar and we've heard it like just right before and after.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty drastic.
That's huge, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make a significant change to the guitar just by changing this. I mean, we put really high-end expensive caps in this. You don't have to do that. But this is a much cheaper option than swapping pickups.
Yeah, you like max what, like $50?
Maybe.
You know, I mean, well, those caps are very expensive because there's a replica cap. But I'm a huge fan of learning how to do it yourself. I like pre-wired kits. But I think once you get a feel for it, you can work on all your guitars and just buy the parts loose and you're gonna save a lot of money.
Yeah, and this makes the guitar more useful. It's hard to convey that in the video because the sound difference is subtle. It is like knowing where that taper was on the original wiring versus where it is now. It's like, oh, I have way more options available to me now than I did before just by changing the pots. Nice.
Sweet.
Let's swap the pickups.
Okay.
Yeah, that's sick. Yeah, I do like them.
They sound good.
Yeah, they sound really good.
It's definitely more aggressive,
Yeah.
but it's a bit more balanced.
Getting rid of that like compressed thing. They're not as low mid-rangey as the stock ones were. Yeah, like on that kind of thing, being able to hear the string a little bit better. And then that out of phase thing is.
And then if you roll it down, it goes right back to.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, so you can still get your standard middle position Les Paul sound. Just roll one of these back. Yeah, that's sick.
So we need to like set the heights.
Yeah.
But once we have that, then I think we'll button it up.
Looks great.
I love their covers.
Yeah.
Like the lengths that Throwback goes to replicate a PAF completely is pretty wacky. That sounds great.
Dude.
I dig it.
Yeah, that is a marked upgrade for that guitar.
Yeah.
I think the moral of the story is being able to swap and upgrade your electronics, which is a worthy upgrade to do to almost any guitar. And compared to the 2 upgrades we made today, which was the wiring and the pickups, this costs significantly more because I went with the throwbacks, which are expensive pickups. But being able to just upgrade those pots to a better taper, a higher quality pot, makes a marked improvement on the usability of the guitar and the way it feels and the way it plays. And that's well under $100 for most guitars.
Yeah, and it's 100% the first thing you should try. If you think my guitar is not, it's close, but it's not there, don't spend 300 or more bucks on pickups. Just try this first. Because at the end of the day, this is worth it. No matter what you do here, this is worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap her up and you can get back home.
Get the hell out of here.